Hello, and welcome back to Weston the Historian. Today, I'm going to be talking about language learning because it's something I'm not good at. It's something I've failed at over and over and over again, and it's something I'm still failing at right now because I'm doing German for school and it's still not going amazing. It's something that really has humbled me in a lot of different ways. Most especially in that I just don't get it. And I've spent years trying to study languages, specifically German, and I haven't gotten very far in all the years that I've tried to study. I've picked it up, I got interested, then I lost interest, dropped it, and repeated that cycle over and over again forever. So I realized something. What I realized was that, well, one, Duolingo stinks, but I also realized that I really like to hear myself talk. So I have been addicted to output. I've been focused pretty extensively on what I can say, on what I can do, on what is correct, how I can speak correctly, how I can pronounce things correctly, how I can use a correct sentence structure and grammar, which is all fine and good, but I have neglected to spend a lot of time listening. I listen to German music, but I don't listen to German conversations, and I don't listen to German podcasts or videos, or for the most part, I don't watch a lot of German movies, so I don't have as much experience with hearing the language. So what I realized was I would hear the language and I wouldn't get it, but then I'd be able to speak it. So someone would say a whole sentence to me in German, and I wouldn't pick up any of it, and then I would say a sentence, and I would understand myself, but I couldn't understand what they were saying, even though they're using the same language, and I just couldn't understand them. And what I realized was I have been so focused on output that I've been entirely neglecting the input, which has made me realize some things about my character, which is that I'm addicted to hearing myself talk, which is not a good character trait. So I'm gonna start working on. I've been working on that. I'm working on that. But that was an interesting realization for me. But I really started realizing it when I did school for the language, because I've never done school for the language. I've always done it with apps and music, and I've journaled in the language, and I've tried reading in the language, and all these other things. But I'm now doing it in class, and it's very conversation heavy, which of course it is, because that's how you learn a language. You speak and you hear the language, and you try to understand what someone is saying, and you respond to them. That's how you learn a language. But I have been too focused on what I can say, what I can do, how I can say what I'm trying to say. And I haven't really focused as much on what other people are saying, and that's ultimately how you build a language, because the point of language is communication and understanding. And I've kind of lost sight of that, and I'm starting to realize I need to be focusing on that, but not just in language learning, but in life in general. But that is something I've been thinking about, and my advice to all people who are learning languages right now is to really focus on input, which is not to say you should neglect output, because there is this very weird theory that in order to learn a language, you have to learn it like a baby, which I think is pretty stupid, because you're not a baby. Babies have a different brain, and they think differently than humans, than grown humans. Not that babies aren't human, of course, but like babies, their brain is like a sponge, because they just popped into the world. They don't know what's going on. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Grown humans are not like that. I don't know why I keep implying that babies aren't human. Adults are not like that. Young adults, teenagers, older children are not like that. If you aren't a baby, you're not going to be able to learn a language like a baby, which is not to say that you shouldn't take it in like a baby. You should absolutely be listening to stuff, but you should especially be listening to conversations, and you should be piecing together conversations, and figuring out how you would respond and how you would ask questions in a language. You need to figure out how you would respond to questions and answer questions in whatever language you're trying to learn, because ultimately that is what language is all about, which is communicating with people. So receiving questions and giving questions, that's the most important part about learning a language, in my opinion. And of course, it does mean that you do have to understand sentence structure and grammar. That's another thing which I realized, especially with learning German. I should have focused on grammar sooner, because now I'm trying to figure out the dative ways of saying der, die, das, and I'm getting caught up on that because I never really focused on grammar, because all these language learning people on YouTube tell me, don't even think about learning the grammar, don't even think about learning the sentence structure. Now I've spent years looking at German, but I have never really progressed that far. And now I'm trying to build a sentence, and I don't know how to use 3 different nouns in a sentence, because, you know, you're supposed to have certain rules on which one is getting placed where and how you address it, because you have to have a certain, one's in nominative, one's in accusative, one's in dative, and there's different ways of expressing that. And that just was something I never paid attention to, which was stupid, because of course you should study that, and you should memorize that. And a lot of the language learning tips on YouTube are telling you not to focus on that, which I'm sure works for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone. And for me, it doesn't work, because now I have gone years without learning it, and now I'm trying to learn it, and I can't figure it out. So yeah, I think it's very important to learn sentence structure and grammar earlier rather than later. Honestly, that should be one of the first things you learn. In my opinion, if I could restart everything and learn German from scratch, I would immediately find stuff that I could listen to that's very easy to comprehend, like kids shows, reading children's books, listening to music, and then I would pretty much immediately learn grammar and sentence structure. Before I even learn how to say hello in the language, I would figure out, okay, when I'm speaking, the subject is here, the accusative thing is here, the dative thing is there. I would figure that out before I even figured out how to say Guten Tag, wie geht's? So that is my advice. And that's also my advice for myself in the past, because I wish I had done that instead of what I did at first, which is just try to listen, try to figure it out, start saying words, because that's how a baby learns. And ultimately, that doesn't work, because you already have a language in your head. It's very difficult to just throw that language out and act like you're a baby who has never heard words before. So, yeah, that's how I would start over the language. But anyway, thank you for watching. Goodbye.